Okay, so last week we gave an introduction to the new series in Pirkei Avot, the importance of our Masoret, of our tradition, how it was handed down, and what it includes. And today, B'ezrat Hashem, we'll begin with learning the first Perek, in Masechet Avot, Perek Rishon. The first Mishnah reads as follows: Moshe kibel Torah miSinai. Moshe is the one that received the Torah at Sinai. Umesara Yeshua, he handed it over to the Yeshua. In other words, after Moshe passed away, the one who was entrusted with the Torah was his student, his very close confidant, Yeshua. Yeshua, of course, was not going to stay around forever, so he had to make sure that there is someone that he can trust that will teach the Torah to future generations. So Yeshua taught it to the Zekenim, Yeshua le Zekenim. So Yeshua is really the first one who teaches it to a group of people. It's no longer handed down necessarily to one individual. Uzekenim le Nevi'im, and the elders, this group of Zekenim, of elders, gave it over or taught it, the Torah, the tradition, Mesarua, they gave it over to the Nevi'im. Zekenim le Nevi'im, Nevi'im Mesarua le Anshe Knesset HaGdolah. The Nevi'im, the prophets, this was a period of time in our history where we had Zekenim, who were the leaders of the generation. We had another period in our history where there were no longer Nevi'im, there was a group called Anshe Knesset HaGdolah. So we have, from Yeshua, it's going over to a group of elders. The elders gave it over to the prophets gave it over to a group called Anshe Knesset HaGdolah, which I'll describe a little bit later on, how they were formed and who they were. The handing over of the Masoret, the handing over of the tradition, the teaching of the Torah, is a very, very fundamental principle in Judaism. I mean, this is perhaps the most important concept. I don't want to call it a mitzvah. It's not one of the 613 mitzvot per se, but without handing it over, I mean, how are people going to figure it out? How are people going to know the Torah? We don't have the revelation of Torah in Sinai every generation. It happened once, and now it is our responsibility and duty to teach it. Not of course, everyone can teach, but those who have the experience, those who have the knowledge, are entrusted to give it over faithfully to the next generation. So this is an important yesod, an important principle in our emunah, that the Masoret has been handed down faithfully by those who were entrusted with it. And Moshe was the first one to receive it in Sinai. Why is that important? Well, obviously there are people who think he actually made it up. He actually composed the Torah himself. There are people who think like that. And if it was not him, it was a group of people. It was a committee, they say. It was human. Composed by human beings. It's not a divine book. And because of that, of course, it has to be made clear when we teach our children, when we learn the Torah, is that this is not man-made. This was not put together by Moshe. And there's a lot of proof, by the way. I have a whole lecture just about that, how we know the Torah is divine. How do we know Torah? Mihashamayim. Whole lecture in itself, very fascinating lecture, all kinds of proof. For example, would an author write negatively about himself in a book? The Torah includes criticism of Moshe Rabbeinu. So Moshe Rabbeinu, you think, would want to write criticism about himself in a book? No author usually does that. Right? Nobody knows where he's buried. Who doesn't want to be famous? That everybody should come to his grave and put some flowers there. Right? No, the Torah says nobody will know. Where he's buried forever, even though people look for the place. Anyway, there are many, many other proofs that the Torah could not have been written by a human being. It is divine, the various prophecies that are mentioned there. I mean, who would take a chance to say certain things that the Torah says? So, this is an important idea to begin with, that it is made clear that not only the Torah, but the other additional information that is being handed down to us by the Chachamim, whether it's in the Mishnah, in the Gemara, or the Midrash, of course, all of that is Sinai, including the De'ot and the Musar, all the ethics and all the ideas that are being expressed by them in this Masechet, Pirkei Avot, These are not just ideas that popped into their mind. As we will explain, these are from their personal experience, of course. However, experience is not sufficient. It has to be based on Torah. Somebody expresses an idea, somebody advises us of something, a chacham, a rabbi. It has to be based on Torah values, on Torah beliefs. It cannot contradict an established principle of Torah. Otherwise, it's wrong to begin with, no matter what your experience is. It has to be compatible with the spirit of Torah. So, in giving over to us the Masoret, it also is very important for us to keep in mind that this Masoret consists, as we've explained, of Torah shebichtav and Torah shebal peh, both the written Torah and the oral Torah. This oral Torah, that we have already explained what it means, all the details and information that are not written in the written Torah, are extremely important. I mean, you cannot ever claim that there was no Torah shebal peh like some groups did claim, including the Karaites, who basically had no respect for the jurisdiction of the rabbis, for their authority. You have the Tzdukim and Baitusim who had trouble with certain ideas too. There were always groups of people who said the rabbis, no, the Torah, yes. You can't. They are the ones who are entrusted with the Torah. They have a lot of information that pertains to the details of the mitzvot. The Torah says put on tefillin. How do I know what that is? That it's a black box, square, straps, what it contains inside, the differences between tefillin rosh, the one on the head, and tefillin shebeyad, the kesher, how to make it. So many details in just one mitzvah. There's many such examples of mitzvot that we need the details, that the Torah, by telling us do this, we don't understand. The Torah says on Shabbat you don't do a melacha. Don't do a melacha. What's a melacha? Do you know that I can take a heavy table that weighs 300 pounds and move it in this room on Shabbat? That's hard work. There's no prohibition on doing that. But there is a prohibition of carrying a handkerchief outside to the Reshut HaRabim, taking out from my home to the street if there's no eruv outside on Shabbat. What? That's a melacha? Yes, that's a melacha. The Torah does not say avodah. The Torah does not say labor is prohibited. The Torah says a creative melacha. Melacha is something that's creative, that used to be done in the Mishkan. It has nothing to do with hardship necessarily, difficulties. If I had no Torah, shebal peh, I wouldn't know what it means. A woman is unclean after birth. It says shavu'aim, 2 weeks, right? For a girl. We're not talking about the additional time that she used to wait during the time of the Bet HaMikdash for the korbanot. If you do not have the vowels, you could read it shiv'im, the same word. Shavu'aim, 2 weeks. Shavu'aim means 2 weeks. If you have no vowels, which is Torah shebal peh, you can read it 70. Could you imagine a woman has to be awake for 70 days? 70 is very, very different than 2 weeks. You cannot have Torah shebichtav without the Torah shebal peh, without the oral word that explains the details that were missing, that are not there, that were handed over orally, until eventually they were written down. The various concepts, ethics, musar, in Pirkei Avot are given to us in this format by the rabbis to teach us that don't ever think that these ideas come from the Greeks, from Goyim, from their culture, from their philosophy. No, this is pure Torah. This is authentic Torah. This is just as much from Sinai like anything else was. Because we cannot accept anything that comes outside of the Torah, anything that does not coincide with Torah values may not be 100% correct. It may not be always right. It may be interesting, it may be somewhat right, but it's not necessarily 100% correct. It's not coming from Torah. It's not coming from a divine source. Look at the American Constitution. How many times have they made amendments to this Constitution? Changes, amendments. Because the times have changed. People have changed. People have a different opinion today about abortion than they did 50 years ago. So the politicians are always looking for ways to change what the forefathers of this country had envisioned, what they had in mind. What a shame. But that's human beings. What do you expect from human beings? They will create laws that will accommodate them in their beliefs. If the fathers of the Constitution would be able to get up from the grave today, they'd go back into the grave right away. Wow, this is what America has become. Terrible. This is not what they wanted. The Torah does not change. The Torah is for all generations to come. It's important, therefore, that we receive Da'at Torah. We go to consult with the Chacham, with the Tzaddik. We believe that Hashem puts in his mind the right advice. We believe that what he tells us is correct. And if he doesn't have the answer, he will look it up. If it's halakha especially, it has to be sometimes investigated, depending on how complicated the question of halakha is. But it's not just halakha. Many, many times we have questions about hashkafa. Hashkafa is a very important area in Judaism. Hashkafa means the right outlook, the right perspective. How are we supposed to deal today with Medinat Israel? Medinat Israel means the state of Israel. Not Eretz Israel. Eretz Israel, of course, Eretz Israel, Kiddush. Kedushah, it's holy. Eretz Israel is the land of our forefathers. No, we have something called Medinat Israel. Medinat Israel was established by Zionists who were not religious. Even though the real, original, earlier Zionists who came to that country to settle the land in the past 200 and so years were religious and were motivated by religious reasons. There were some people who were not motivated by religious reasons. How are we supposed to look at them? Are we supposed to cooperate with them? Are we supposed to vote for the Knesset? Or is the Knesset something basul, tarif, no good? Because some of the people sitting there are not Torah observant. This was a big question that came up in the early part of this century, or past century. Big rabbis had to deal with the question. And some of them were very much against the state. We're not going to take money from them. We're not going to support them. We're not going to be involved with them because they don't represent us. There's others who are even more extreme. There can't be a state until Mashiach comes. I don't even want to mention their names. Why don't I want to mention the names? Because they're a very, very small minority and they don't count. When it comes to proper hashkafa, we have to follow the majority opinion of our rabbis. The majority of the opinion has always been to accept the fact on the ground. The facts on the ground are HaKadosh Baruch Hu is bringing the Mashiach. It's coming about through the back door. Yes, we wish it would come through the front door. The back door meaning in an indirect way, in a way that we would have preferred it should not be. After all, the secular movement does not love Torah. And they would rather there be no Torah. So we know that on the one hand, they may be, some of them, enemies of Torah. But on the other hand, the rabbis tell us that many of them are tinokim shenishbu. Especially this generation, not the first ones, the leaders, but especially this generation, they were born into a system that basically deprived them of their tradition. They're not at fault. They don't know any better. Are they against? No, they simply are ignorant. And that is why they behave the way they do. Embrace them. Try to influence them. Try to teach them. Of course, don't go along with them with everything they say and do because you can't go against the Torah. So it's a very delicate subject. Very delicate. And there are different opinions, and some opinions vary a little bit, some vary more. Right? So what do we need here? We need Da'at Torah. Da'at Torah means we need the right outlook, the right attitude on how to deal with a situation which is not mentioned in the Torah. How do you deal with these people? Do you fight them? Or do you accept them? Do you ignore them? We have to know the right reaction. It's very, very critical. Very critical. So the proper Dat Torah is, of course, what the rabbis, the leaders of the generation tell us. Their minds and their neshama is imbued with Torah. They don't have necessarily an agenda. They don't have personal interests, hopefully not, because then you're being bribed by those interests and agendas. Oh, they're going to give you money. They're going to support your institutions. That may be bribery. So you have to be very careful that what you're saying and what you're doing is completely coming from Torah. That could be tricky. So you have to turn to the big tzaddikim of the generation. If you start seeing somewhat of a consensus, you go with it. There was not 100% consensus, obviously. That could be for various reasons. The Yetzer Hara gets involved and tries to make machloket, divisions. There is interests of a certain group. And there is room for some different opinions too. Doesn't necessarily mean that everybody has to have the same opinion, even though they're all coming from the Torah. No, sometimes you have Bet Hillel, you have Bet Shammai. You have those who are strict and those who are more lenient. It's okay. But in the end, Acharei Rabim La'atot, you have to come to a consensus. Otherwise, Chas v'Shalom, there will be continuous machloket. So depending on what the issue is, it's important that we follow the majority opinion, especially when it comes to such sensitive topics, how to deal with the secular movement in Israel and elsewhere, in America too. How to deal with the conservatives and with the reform. Da'at Torah means that the rabbis at tzaddikim hopefully are expressing what the Torah has to say. And hopefully, B'ezrat Hashem, they will have siyata d'shmaya, they will have divine assistance also, to guide them to do the right thing. It is therefore the general consensus opinion that the state of Israel, the mechanism that is in place right now, although it's not ideal, it's there for a reason. It's mishamayim like that. And we have to know how to navigate these waters. And on the one hand, we're very happy. On the one hand, because Baruch Hashem, we have a home we're able to go to. We don't have to remain in the galut. On the other hand, we're quite aware that Mashiach is not here yet. And that is why we're still spread out all over the world. But we are seeing the words of the prophets coming true. There's little by little immigration to that land. How could you just discount that? So if you look deeper into what is happening, it is obvious that Mashiach is coming. It is obvious that this is messianic times. But things are not perfect. And hopefully, B'ezrat Hashem, things will get even better. That's more or less the way to look at it. So these de'ot, these ideas that are being expressed by the Chachamim, represent entirely that Torah, not influenced by some Greek philosopher, by Plato, Aristotle. These are words that are coming directly from Torah. The fact that the rabbis mention Kabbalat Torah together or along with these midot and musar is to remind us that derech eretz kadma la Torah. A lot of what we will be learning is about derech eretz. Derech eretz means proper conduct, good behavior, morals, right? Values. Derech eretz, Rabbi tells us, kadma la Torah. Derech eretz comes before the Torah. All the knowledge will serve you no good if the individual is rotten from the inside in character. He has no derech eretz, he has no midot tovot, no good character. Then what is good, all this Torah? Derech eretz has to be there before, has to be the foundation upon which we put or we build the Torah into the person. So the two have to always be together. The way the tradition or the way the Masoret is handed down is in a very interesting way. It says Moshe Kibel. Moshe Kibel Torah Misinai. Why does it say Kibel? No, Moshe Kibel. Moshe, you will see from reading the Mishnah that Moshe Kibel, he receives the Torah. Why is there an emphasis on the Kibel? You could have said Hashem gave the Torah to Moshe. Moshe is the one that's being mekabel. The word kibel is a very, very strong word. And it is associated with the receiving of the Torah in Sinai, because the rabbis want us to realize, to know, that Kabbalat Torah in every generation, including ours, has to happen in a very, very determined way. Kibel is not like Hashem handed him and that's it. Kibel means a certain interest in wanting to receive, effort being made to receive it. Torah requires amal veyegi'ah, the commentaries explain here. It requires tremendous amount of work to receive it so that it become part of us. It is not like going and learning biology or some other science and getting a bachelor's or a master's, where you will receive information and you will absorb it. This is going to be part of our life. This is going to be hopefully something that we will want to give it over to our children too. So therefore, this is not the same kind of acquisition as other acquisitions. This is serious. This is something that we actually want to continue to receive continuously. On a daily basis, we receive the Torah. We learn the Torah. And depending on the effort made, depending on how much we invest in the devote to the learning of the Torah, that is how much, of course, the Torah will be a part of us. A lot of people learn Torah, but each one learns it in a different way. Some people spend more time. You know, there were great rabbis who barely slept.
Jonathan ben Uziel.
Barely slept. Jonathan ben Uziel didn't even get married. He was married to the Torah. But he's an exception. Obviously, the Torah wants us to get married. But there were some great rabbis, great tzaddikim, who were so immersed in Torah that the Torah became a part of their life. I mean, completely. They obviously knew the Torah very well. They were holy men. And they were able to elevate themselves immensely through their effort in Torah. They put a lot more effort. So the more effort that is invested in Torah, you're going to get a totally different product over here. You teach somebody Torah and you don't teach the next person Torah, there's going to be a difference. Even though, I should say, it's sometimes possible for a person who did not learn Torah to have a finer character, so don't get me wrong, than the one who learned Torah. Because the Torah is not a guarantee that this person will become a great person. That's why some people are disappointed. How could this great rabbi do something like that? Unfortunately, I have to give that as an example because many people complain about that. First of all, whoever told you he's such a great rabbi? You know, when people tell me that rabbi, that Orthodox guy, not the rabbi, the Orthodox guy, he stole money. I say he stole, then he's not Orthodox. No, but Rabbi, he keeps Shabbat. Oh, he keeps Shabbat, but he's still not Orthodox. Keeping Shabbat does not mean that this guy is Orthodox. Orthodox means that he keeps everything, including don't steal, don't cheat, don't lie. So you have a lot of individuals who may be keeping Shabbat and kosher, but are not purely 100% Orthodox. So the Torah, of course, can help a person refine his character. It could show him the right way. But it's not a guarantee that a person who learned Torah will be a big tzaddik, will be an angel. It depends if he adapted to Derech Eretz. It depends on his real character. He could be an animal. He has a big Yetzer Hara. He needs help. He could have psychological problems, emotional traumas. Who knows what he went through? And we can't judge a person until we see what he went through. Nevertheless, the Torah is still a big help. It can help, it can show the way. And if we see somebody who learned Torah and is still an animal, because obviously he never made the decision, or he tried and failed, and he's not trying too much more to control himself. It's a continuous battle, but the Torah can help. Without Torah, if a person has a good character, and he doesn't have too many challenges, he may survive life in being a good boy. But what if he has a big challenge? What's a big challenge? A big challenge would be as follows. He's about to be thrown into jail. He was caught doing something against the law. The government comes and tells him, listen, if you tell us who else in your community did the same thing, you don't get to sit in jail. How do you like that? You know how many times this has happened? What is a person supposed to do? It's a big dilemma. He has good character. If he does not have the Torah to guide him, there's a very good chance he will tell on others, so he should not sit, because he will find a way of justifying it. They have enough money anyway. They're going to come out after a couple of years. Why should I suffer? Especially if they also do these kinds of things. You see what I mean? If a person does not have Torah to guide him, even though he may have good character, when he's challenged by it, he may fail. And we said that before. The Torah is our anchor. It anchors our beliefs. It guides us to do the things properly. We consult with Chachamim. Is this right or is this wrong? To tell on someone. To snitch. Chaz v'shalom. Usually it's a sur. You have to be very, very careful. Lashon hara. And there's other problems too with telling the authorities. Depending, of course, on what it is. Depending, there are times that one has to say. But is it because of a personal gain? That usually is a no-no. Without Torah, how should a person know if it's right or wrong? Therefore, the Mesirat HaTorah, the handing over of the Torah, has to be through someone who safag, as we say in Hebrew, the Torah. He has absorbed the Torah in himself. He is qualified of giving it over. Why? Imagine somebody who doesn't believe in the Torah teaching Torah. Somebody who desecrates the Torah. You think he can represent the Torah? You think he can give it over properly? He's not excited about it. He doesn't believe in it. He thinks it's Baba Mises, as we say in Yiddish, that this is fairy tales. When you go to learn a foreign language, let's say you want to learn Chinese. It's a difficult language, but you want to learn it. Don't you think it's better to learn it from a Chinese person than to learn it from somebody who grew up in South Africa, but he studied Chinese? Learn it from the native. Learn it from the person who grew up with it, who has a proper accent, who knows the culture, the expressions, has a better understanding of how to use the language. That's what they usually do. They usually, for a teacher, they usually prefer to use a native. To learn Torah, you want to use a native, one who learns the Torah, believes the Torah, practices the Torah, right? Otherwise, what is this like? This is similar, the Chafetz Chaim, Zecher Tzadik Lebracha, says, this is similar to an Apikoros that wrote a Torah. Apikoros is a heretic, one who does not believe in the Torah at all, but he has nice handwriting. So he wrote a whole Sefer Torah. Guess what the halacha is? You burn this Sefer Torah. You don't throw it in the garbage. You don't put it away, not use it. You burn it. It has no kedusha, no holiness. A Torah that was written by a Apikoros, a heretic, it's worthless. It's a poison. You burn it, you don't leave any vestige, anything from it. If such a Sefer Torah is burnt, could you imagine this Apikoros teaching Jewish children Torah? Unacceptable. Throw him out. His words are worthless. They're actually dangerous. Do you know that such people are not invited for the Seder at Pesach either? Pesach is a nice time to be together. There are a few people who are not supposed to be invited. And one of them is one who doesn't believe in the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim. He's going to make fun. He's going to tell the kids, man ishtana layla zeh. Come on. Enjoy your meal. Whoever said this happened? You want that kind of a guest at your table when you as a father are giving over the tradition to your children? Chaz v'shalom. This is a critical moment. The Seder night, Pesach. V'gata lebincha bayom hahu lemor. This is a time when we give it over. We're supposed to give it over every day. Whenever we're at the table, father's teaching his son, if he can. Be careful not to involve people who are going to cool off the kid instead of strengthening him. Yeah.
What if the person was a righteous person and he wrote the Torah and then later on in his life he became a heretic?
Well, at the time when he wrote it, he was righteous. That's a good question. A person can sometimes lose himself, go off the derech, but at the time he wrote it, it's a good question. At the time he wrote it, he was righteous. At the time it was written, it had kedusha. At the time it was written, he probably had the right kavanah too, possibly. And it could be 100% kosher. We're not going to take back what he has done. All the mitzvot that he did when he was a righteous are still recorded upstairs.
You have to respect him? Because it says somewhere you have to respect the Talmid Chacham who has fallen from grace.
Very true, good point. The Talmid Chacham who was fallen from grace, especially because in his later years, because of illness or because of some pressures, yeah, he's a broken man, you know. It's not the same as a person who was always in the pikoros. The situation has to, of course, be evaluated. And one has to be sensitive with these people. There's always a chance that he may come back. So you don't want to give up on any Jew. This can happen with children who were raised in a Jewish home, unfortunately, and they went off the derech. What do you do now? You leave the door open for them. You don't just... Many parents in Eastern Europe used to sit shiva, as though the child died when he went and married somebody, of course, that was not approved of. Somebody, or they did something that was completely wrong. Even though it's understandable that they showed him their bitterness and how upset they were at him, that is acceptable. But you always still leave the door open. You always still listen. We're going to protest in the harshest way possible. We're going to kick you out, depending on what was done. But we're going to leave the door open. We love you, and we want you to come back. And we will be very, very happy when you do. So it's a very, very delicate situation when things happen like that to people for a variety of reasons. Always leave the door open. A person who therefore does not believe in the Torah, who doesn't believe in what he's teaching, why is he teaching it? I don't know. Maybe he needs a salary. He needs money. But he can definitely not be a good communicator. He can definitely not be a good teacher if he doesn't believe in what he's teaching. Imagine somebody teaching a science class. You know, today there's a big problem in schools about teaching Bible, creationism. They teach in science, they teach about evolution, even though it's not proven. It's just a theory, and a lot of people are against it. Anyway, imagine somebody teaching creation, and he doesn't believe in it. He's an evolutionist. He's going to go over it quickly, say, some people believe in this idea called creation. What kind of a teacher is that? You want to teach, you want to be fair, you want to give over things as they are written, properly. If you don't believe in it, don't teach it. A teacher has tremendous influence over students. You want to have the best teachers. Okay, so Moshe has given over the Torah to Yoshua. He didn't just give it over. He didn't just hand it over. Moshe, Masara, it says. Mesara liYoshua, lo Natan liYoshua. He could have said Natan, he gave it. Masar is much more powerful. Masar means that he made sure that whatever he's giving over is well understood, that this man, Yoshua, will be strong enough to give it over to the next generation. Masara means that Yoshua hopefully will be proud and happy of what he received and excited as much as the teacher was. So Masar assumes great responsibility in the teacher making sure that the student understood it. A teacher can come to the class and write on the blackboard and tell everybody, Ma'asalam, as we say in Hebrew, Shalom, goodbye, see you tomorrow. They understood, they didn't understand, that's not his job. He'll give them a test and that's it. He's just a teacher giving over information. A real teacher, a Jewish teacher, has to care about whether the students understood or not. Otherwise, this is not a good teacher. So Mesirah means to be preoccupied, to make certain that the transmission goes over 100%. Many of you remember the days of the telegram? Even in Iran there was telegrams?
Yes.
Yeah.
In a very distant period.
That's right. Everywhere. They had telegrams. So imagine you came to give to write a telegram. And you tell, and this is a business business transaction, and you tell the people at the office of the telegram, you know, I want to write a telegram that I'm selling so many yards, right? Let's say 15 yards or whatever it is. You're selling fabric, right? For 15 cents a yard. Okay, whatever it is. And one who sends it again says 15 yards is too much. He changes it to 10. And instead of writing 10 cents for the yard, he writes 20 cents. He changes basically what you wrote because he doesn't think that what you wrote makes any sense. If he sends it that way, you definitely can sue him. You definitely have a valid complaint that he changed your instructions, right? You can't do that. The Torah has very clear instructions as how to give it over. And we want to make certain that the next generation will give it over exactly in the same way. You can't make changes to it. That is why the Torah, already anticipating that there will be people and movements of all kinds, including false prophets, who will try to make changes. The Torah says, "Lo tigra ve'lo tosif." You cannot add, you cannot detract, you cannot make any changes. One letter missing from a Sefer Torah, or change it, it's pasul. Put it away in the Aron. You can't read from it. That is how strict they were. You have to make certain that the Torah goes down the next generation accurately, the way we received it. Even if a prophet comes and tells you, listen, I'll prove to you that the Torah is changed. I'll walk on water. You know what I mean, right? All kinds of miracles. The Torah says, don't believe him. He's false. Because I tell you now, Hashem says, and the book is sealed. Sealed. The Torah can never be changed. So if somebody tells you to change it, you know he's a liar. See? The Torah took this precaution, this mechanism of securing the Torah, because in future generations, unfortunately, there will be those who will want to tamper with it and make changes to it. Oh, the times have changed. Oh, Hashem made a change. There's a New Testament now. He said there won't be. He says clearly there won't be. How could you make a change? Then it's a false prophet. So you see how, Baruch Hashem, that Hashem wrote that in, but people forget about that. People say, no. It's possible to change. But the Torah says, no, you can't change. You know what they say? It's man-made. It was a committee. That's the only way they can say it. It was a committee. We're also a committee. And we decide to make changes. You know, if you believe the Torah is divine, no changes are acceptable. Who gets it at the very end? Which is the last group that gets the transmission as a group? And Shek Knesset Agdolah. Who were then Shek Knesset Agdolah? We're talking about a group of 120 men, great rabbis, who are beginning to form during the end of Beit Rishon, the end of the First Temple era, where Am Yisrael is about to go into Galut. And when Am Yisrael comes back from Galut Bavel, the Babylonian diaspora, they are there as a group of great rabbis to teach Am Yisrael the Torah, to transmit to them the Masoret as they've received it. And this is happening in a very critical period, the time of Jewish history. So when the rabbis tell us that this group of people, 120 members, received the Masoret from the Nevi'im, from the prophets, this particular bridge or handover is critical because we're talking about a time when Am Yisrael is about to go into Galut, to the diaspora. Therefore, one may think, Chas v'shalom, perhaps now, at this time or stage in history, the chain of transmission may be broken. Galut, they're going to go to Iraq, to Bavel. Some of them are not coming back right away. Who knows what's going to happen now? No. At this point in time, the Masoret was given to Anshe Knesset Agdolah. Amongst them was Zerubbabel, Nehemiah, Mordechai, Ezra later on. Great rabbis who were knowledgeable in the Torah, who cared about the Torah, and who safeguarded the Torah. That was the whole idea behind Anshe Knesset Agdolah. It's not just to teach, it's to safeguard. to safeguard the Torah, the transmission of the Torah. And this, of course, group was therefore not only entrusted in handing or in teaching over the tradition to future generation, but in making chizukim to the dat. Chizukim means in strengthening the dat, the religion, the Torah, in various areas where they felt it needed strengthening. Times have changed, the Torah is not changing, but people have changed. We have to therefore find ways to make sure everybody's aligned with the Torah. Not that the Torah aligns itself with people, never. Align the people with the Torah. We have to therefore make changes in the daily routine. We have to introduce certain concepts that are compatible with Torah to safeguard the Torah. So therefore, with Anshe Knesset Agdolah, that is the time in our history when you find that they are introducing and organizing prayer in a formal way. Sidur, the prayer book is called Sidur Ki Hu Mesudar. Before them, how did somebody pray? Once a day, perhaps. He went to his corner sometime when he had some time, and he said, Hashem, thank you, Baruch Hashem, I'm healthy. Provide for me, continue to provide for me. If he needed something, he would ask him. And everything in his own words, in their own language. What happened, unfortunately, is because of Galut and other reasons, not everyone was fluent in Hebrew. Not everybody was fluent in any one language. They spoke, there was a time in the history of the Jewish people that the Jews were speaking a mixture of languages and dialects. Hebrew, Aramaic, and other languages of that area, all mixed up in one. They were not fluent, they could not express themselves well. So then Anshe Knesset Agdolah made for us, composed a Sidur, what to pray, what to say, when to say it, how many times to say it, morning, afternoon, evening, special prayers for the holidays. You're seeing a change in society, in the Jewish society, of how they conduct themselves. Soon there will not be korbanot. After the Bet HaMikdash, we don't have korbanot. What are we going to have instead of korbanot? That whole service of the Bet HaMikdash,
Prayers.
we have prayers. So you see how Jewish life today is very different than what it was 2,000 years ago. And even more different than what it was 3,000 years ago. Because the Chachamim introduced certain routines, certain rituals that they knew were necessary for that particular generation to be strong. Once upon a time, the Korbanot, the Bet HaMikdash, the Aliyah L'Rega, coming to Yerushalayim 3 times a year, that was sufficient for them. Today, we don't have that. We need other things to strengthen us, other things to bond us with the Torah. We need prayer 3 times a day. We need a minyan. It makes a big difference. We need to say amen to other people's berachot, things that were not really known back then. So they are the ones who are introducing this. The Sidur, they are introducing Kriyat Torah, Monday, Thursdays, Shabbat, especially in Mincha. Yeah, even though some of these concepts and ideas go back from Moshe Rabbeinu, they are formalizing it. They are giving us the halacha of how to do it, when to do it, how many pesukim to read from the Torah. Kohen, Levi, Yisrael, how many aliyot. Look at all these details that are coming about later in our history. Because Anshe Knesset Agdolah realized that this is the time to formalize these things. And in Shabbat too, various halachot that they basically introduced to safeguard the Shabbat. So their takanot, their decrees, their teachings, of course, were only meant to safeguard the tradition that they're handing down. A lot of what you will be hearing in the coming months, Zad Hashem, that we will be learning Pirkei Avot, that this rabbi said this, and this rabbi said this, you have to realize that it is based on Torah, but it's also from personal experience. Otherwise, why is this rabbi saying that and not another rabbi? It's because this rabbi or group of rabbis lived at a time where they experienced or observed a particular problem or issue, and they said, be careful, pay attention. This could happen. Therefore, they advised us from personal experience as well as from the Chokhmat Torah that they had, and the Masoret, to do certain things or to be careful with certain things. So a lot of what you'll be learning, B'ezrat Hashem, will be personal experience, which is of course very important. But this personal experience, as we said, has to be compatible with Torah. And it is. That is why Moshe Kibel Torah and we sing that this is all from Sinai. So I think we can spend now a few minutes on just the first Mishnah. In the first Mishnah, we read about in the beginning how the tradition went from generation to generation. The last group to receive the tradition as a whole, responsible for it, was Anshe Knesset Gedolah. Hem amru shlosha dvarim. They said three things. That's it? No, they said many, many things. They taught us a lot of things. But they said three things in this Masechet Avot that pertain particularly to the chizuk of the Torah, to their job of safeguarding the Torah. They said, you want to safeguard the Torah? Concerning that, we have three important things to say. I'm going to first read it to you, translate, and then explain each one. Hevu metunim badin. Be deliberate in justice. When you are judging, when you're giving over a psak din, you're about to resolve a dispute or a question in halakha, be deliberate. Slowly. Look into it. Be careful about it. Think about it. That's called matun. Make sure that you have many, many students come to your classes. And make fences or build fences around the Torah. So let's analyze each one of these three things. These are very important, not only to safeguard the Torah, but because we unfortunately have been in Galut, and we still are in Galut, this has additional importance, what they're saying. In other words, they are seeing the situation, they are aware that we may go back into Galut, so the more so, make certain that these three things are well understood. Metunim badin. Who are they speaking to right now? They're speaking to the next generation of rabbis and judges who have a very, very big responsibility. They are the teachers, they are the ones that resolve issues, problems, and so forth, clarify halachot. Metunim badin. Badin is not only justice, but it could also mean din halacha. Be matun. Matun means like that. Imagine Reuven and Shimon come to you. They have a dispute. Oh, there's some problem that arises. One rabbi may say, oh, I'm familiar with this. I've had several cases like this. Don't rush into a conclusion. Maybe this is a little bit different. We're only human. We can make mistakes. Even rabbis make mistakes. Have a matun. You want good advice not to make a mistake? You want good advice to be able to give over the Torah properly? Don't rush to conclusions. Don't be impulsive. Don't reach a decision so quickly. Deliberate on it. Think about it. Investigate it. Talk it over. Discuss it with the other dayanim. Consult with others who are experts perhaps. And don't rely on your own understanding. Maybe you're not right. So be matun when it comes to justice. They are being told that because rabbis are looked up to. They are the supreme authority of the Jewish nation. And if they do something wrong, not only is it Chilul Hashem, unfortunately, but people will be taught the wrong thing. And in the end, they will lose the prestige. They will have a bad reputation. We want the next generation to have the proper kavod and respect for the previous generation, for the rabbis, for the elders, for the leaders. You're risking losing respect. You know how dangerous that is? You want to give over the transmission? You want to teach? You want the Torah to continue? Oy vavoy, chaz v'shalom, God forbid, if you lose respect, because if there's no respect for that authority, then there will be chaz v'shalom an interruption in the Torah. You're entrusted to give it over. If you lose that respect, so be careful in din. Matun also mean, by the way, it also applies to those individuals who think they know. They can make decisions. Don't rush to be a rabbi or a judge unless you really have learned Torah very well. A lot of people can give a psak halacha because they're smart. but maybe they're not knowledgeable enough. So don't rush to give a din or to give a psak halacha unless you've really have thoroughly learned the halachot. Another very important idea that many people forget, many unfortunately, is that the reason why one never wants to rush to a conclusion about a dispute of who is right and who is wrong, even if you know the halacha very well, is because ideally, lechatchila, the best outcome of any dispute is a peshara, a compromise. Compromise. What's the Farsi word for compromise? I remember it's a hard word. You remember? Compromise. Peshara in Hebrew. Think about it. I'll give you time. Compromise. That's the best thing. The halakha even says, encourage all sides to reach a compromise if possible before they come to the Bet Din. If it's not possible, then what can we do? We go to the Bet Din, not to court, Chaz Hashem, to Bet Din. So because one is matun, one does not rush, there may be a chance for that. If you rushed, okay, let's get it over with. Chaval, you're going to have more hatred. Let's say you say Reuven is right, Shimon is wrong. Did you make peace with them? No. They're going to continue to hate each other. Now even more perhaps. And now they will also hate the rabbis. Especially the one who came out wrong. He said, I'm wrong. Try to make a compromise. So therefore don't rush to the din. Be matun about it. The next point was Amidu Talmidim Harbe. Make sure you have a lot of students. What for? There's a famous old mahloket between the school of Bet Hillel and the school of Bet Shammai. Bet Shammai was very strict about certain things, including about teaching. To who to teach? He says, you know who to teach to? The student has to be qualified. He has to be tzanua, modest. He has to be agun and kasher, a proper young man who's serious about learning. Bet Hillel says, don't be so strict and demanding of what qualities the student should have. Otherwise, you may be stuck with only a couple who may meet the criteria that you're asking for. But there's another reason why you want to open up the doors. Like another example in the Gemara of Rabbi Azar ben Azariah and Rabban Gamliel. Also, they had two very different ways of qualifying a student. Who is accepted and who's not to class, to school. Be careful with that. The halakha, as it is being said over here, apparently is more like Bet Hillel. Ha'emidu talmidim harbe. Many. Why? If you let in 1,000, maybe from the 1,000 you'll have 10 good ones. Not all the 1,000 are going to be great people necessarily. Learned, knowledgeable, rabbis. But if you let in 1,000, at least you have 10. A few you may have. If you only let in 10, 15, maybe none of them will be good. You're taking a chance. The more the better. As long as they're not troublemakers, of course. Don't be so picky who you're letting in, because you never know. By the way, there have been cases where, of let's say a group of 100, the weak ones, the ones nobody had any hope for, they became the great leaders. The ones who were smart with a high IQ, they went off the derech even. They became not religious. Can you imagine? Nobody would ever know that. In the yeshiva, this guy was learning day and night. He was smart. They asked him all the hard questions. And eventually he became nothing. Nothing? Or he went, if chasr, he went even off the derech. The guys who were struggling, the guys who couldn't learn so much, they became the tzaddikim, the talmidei chachamim. What do you know? We don't know. So be open-minded, allowing as many as possible. The more the better. You want to give over the Torah. You want some, at least, to remain dedicated to this. Yes?
Wasn't it true that Hillel was actually the student of Shammai? So how could he go against what his teacher was teaching, or to divert himself?
Okay, that's a very good, valid question. Whether one is a student or not, is not, regardless of whether one is a student or not, how do we have differences of opinion? I have a whole lecture about that. The various differences of opinion amongst the rabbis. In general, even about halakha, major halachot, Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai, where the rabbis tell us, Shiv'im panim la Torah, you basically have 70 facets to the Torah, 70 interpretations that are all admissible. We have one halakha, however. So certain things, opinions are admissible, accepted, but they're not necessarily the halakha, as long as they don't go against the Torah. So you may have opinions that are compatible with the Torah, in the spirit of the Torah, that may be acceptable. In the end, we have one halakha, of course, you can't have two halachot. So in the same way, with hashkafa, that I mentioned earlier, hashkafa is the outlook. This is a question of hashkafa, not a halakha. Do you accept everyone? Do you accept only the best, the qualified? Do you accept only the ones who are serious? So one way of thinking might say, listen, we can't allow all these guys. This is Torah, this is serious stuff. This is not respectful for the Torah to teach it to these people. Let them first prepare themselves. Let them earn. It's a privilege to learn Torah. The other rabbis may say, listen, you're right. You're right, Bet Shammai, you're right. But you never know. Human psychology is funny. They may change tomorrow. What are you going to wait? It will chaval. We need leaders. We have a future generation. So they are both in a sense right. But one is being too strict. And because of the strictness, you may be eliminating some good candidates who in the future may become great people, great leaders. So that is why the halakha, or the opinion of Bet Hillel, is the one that was accepted throughout Jewish history. There's an emphasis on many students. There's an emphasis on teaching, because we are the nation or the people of the book. The reason for that is that ignorance is our greatest enemy. Ignorance is the greatest enemy of anyone. A lot of people are ignorant about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, and that is why they're protesting, because they're ignorant. They don't even know the history of the region. Ignorance is a great enemy. People who are unaware, who are not informed, they do silly things. They act in a silly way. It's dangerous to be ignorant. The Torah doesn't want the Jew to be ignorant, not of his tradition, not of his Torah. This is our way of life. We have to know halachot. How are we going to keep Shabbat if we don't know halachot? We have to learn Hilchot Shabbat. At least the basics. Right? Ignorance is totally incompatible with Judaism. So therefore, in order to transmit the tradition to future generations, to teach them Torah, you have to have students, you have to have a system, school, shiurim, where you teach. And, of course, you want the Torah to survive. So it's not just about knowledge, it's about survival of the tradition of the Torah. You need the more the better. The more students, the better. So we see that this first Mishnah is going along with the Shita, with the philosophy or Ashkafa, the outlook of Bet Hillel. That it makes more sense that you give the opportunity to many, many students, when we know that in the end, at least some will come out the way we want them to come. Ha'amidu, what does ha'amidu mean? They should have said, telamdu. What does make them stand up? As we said earlier, it's not enough to just give over the information and teach them. Ha'amidu, make sure they stand. Make sure that they're able, a father takes his child when he's 1.5 years old, actually not 1.5, when he's 9 months to a year old, he's beginning to walk, he holds him by the hand, right? Eventually he can let go. You're about to let go at some point, make sure before you let go that they can stand on their own 2 feet. Ha'amidu, make sure that they're able to stand, make sure that they are proud, that you gave them over to them with excitement, with love and dedication, because that is what you want them to have. That is how you want them to give it over to their children and students. So ha'amidu, make certain, tid'ag lechach, that what you're giving is not just raw information, that you are causing the student to stand on his own 2 feet. And the third important point in this Mishnah is vasu siyag la Torah. Make a fence around the Torah. What's this fence all about? Obviously, this group of people, this group of rabbis, wants to safeguard the Torah. And one way of safeguarding is to make fences. Why? There is attacks. There are always attacks from the inside and from the outside, unfortunately. There will be attacks, infiltrators, all kinds of dangers. And therefore you have to put a fence. You know how certain fires are started at home? Many fires have started in the home because of cigarettes. On the mattress, right? Hotel rooms. What if you say, but wait a minute, it's okay. Let them smoke. There's anyway smoke alarms and sprinklers in the room. Is that enough? All the smoke alarms and sprinklers do is help you after the fact. After the fire is already there, maybe you'll be able to save yourself and to save the home. Maybe. That is not preventing the fire from beginning. What prevents the fire from not beginning at all? Leave out the matches. Don't smoke in the room. That is to prevent the fire from ever happening. What good is it? Okay, smoke alarms. It's putting a band-aid on the situation. You want to prevent the machala. You want to prevent the illness. You don't want to cure it. You don't want the thing to happen, Chas v'shalom. You want it not to happen. So you need fences. Bnei Yisrael in Egypt did not change their language, did not change their name, did not change their clothing. Why? They didn't want to assimilate, to be Egyptians. If a Jew lets down any barrier, gets too close, he assimilates, he integrates. Oh, that's so nice and comfortable, but you're going to lose your identity. You want to lose your identity? The Torah says, I don't want you to lose your identity. I want it to be different. In order to be different, you have to preserve that which is unique about yourself. So therefore we need fences. The fences to the Torah are not additions. We're not allowed to add to the Torah. We said that before. Then what are they? They're only fences to protect the Torah. So let's take a few examples. What's one famous fence that the rabbis gave us? Hilchot muktzeh on Shabbat. Hilchot muktzeh means that, for example,
Touching matches?
huh?
Touching matches? No?
Yeah, no, not touching. Muktzeh is not moving
Right.
or carrying or handling certain items that are forbidden in the Torah, on Shabbat. And it could be money, it could be stones,
Pen?
it could be a pen, there's all kinds of muktzeh. I don't want to get into too many details. All kinds of things that we don't use on Shabbat ordinarily. You don't use it because it's forbidden to use, because you don't do those things, then don't handle it either. Why? Because we know human beings, we know their mindset. They can easily come to do the averah. They can easily come to commit the transgression. We're going to therefore make a fence. You can't even handle these things, because if you handle them and move them around, you may actually come to use them in the wrong way. See what I mean? So they know the human psychology, right? They see the weaknesses of their generation or of their time, and they said, we're going to make a gader here, takana. We have that authority from the Torah, gives the rabbis the authority if they see in their judgment that it's necessary. Ilchot nidah, between husband and wife, has certain harchakot that are by rabbinic decree. Don't come too close, don't do certain things, because that may lead to the ultimate serious transgression. Yes?
Is that why, technically, poultry is not considered to be...
That was my next example. Poultry. The Torah prohibits having steak with milk, especially if they were cooked. We're talking about they were cooked together. You can't eat basar b'chalav in the Torah. What kind of basar meat? Beef. What if you want to have chicken, schnitzel with a cup of milk? It's not asur by the Torah. That's not beef. But the rabbi said they look too similar. People may mistake it. People may learn that it's okay, whatever. Let's forbid anything that looks like meat, including chicken. Well, what for? To safeguard the real isur.
Even fish.
Huh?
Even fish.
No, fish with milk is something else. Fish with meat is also a different reason, health reasons. Then there's the chot yichud. A man cannot be with a woman in the same room by themselves if it's not his wife or daughter or sister or mother or grandmother, unless the door is open and unlocked, or unless his wife is with him, or unless other people are there, because yichud, being by yourself, man and woman, can lead to trouble. The Chachamim know that many people have fallen. So you have to put a fence and you have to make this takana of Isur, of Yehud, being together. Bishul Akum. A non-Jew cannot cook for us. Unless you lit the fire, unless you put the pot on the fire, depending on your custom. Also, the Chachamim were concerned about assimilation and intermarriage. They said these kinds of things lead to that. We're going to say it's Asur. It wasn't Asur at the beginning. When they felt it was right, that's when they prohibited. So the rabbis understood, were aware of human weaknesses, human psychology. They knew the problems as they appeared, as they surfaced, and whenever there was a need, they made takanot. Obviously, the main idea behind this is that the siyagim are always to protect. Siyagim are to safeguard the tradition from all kinds of infiltrations, from all kinds of issues that may arise, where people will be tempted, instead of safeguarding, to change. To change. Let's make it easier. Oh, today we don't have fire, we have electricity. Life has changed. It's become more modern. We have technology and sophistication. People may be tempted who have this kind of thinking, oh, it's okay, this doesn't apply. You know, people say all kinds of things about the Torah. This was during primitive times they disallowed these things. They said this. Chas v'shalom. That's not that Torah. A person who, that shows a person did not learn the Zohar, did not learn the Midrash, did not learn the Gemara, did not learn the Mishnah. That shows a person is acting on his own beliefs. That's not that Torah. That Torah means the Torah is divine, the Torah is forever, the Torah does not accept any changes to it. On the contrary, all the efforts have been made by all the rabbis to protect. If anything, they added to protect and to preserve that which we always had, that which will always be. What has changed? Human beings have changed. Just because human beings have changed does not mean I have to change the Torah. I have to adapt the people to the Torah, not the Torah to the people. That's where the Reform and Conservative make big mistakes. You adapt the people to the Torah. You show them how it is possible, yes, to make a clock on Shabbat for certain things. You may be able to use a clock for certain things, not for everything. Right? A Shabbat clock. Yeah. You may be able to have elevators that stop at every floor. There's even a pen. If you're in the hospital and they make you sign on Shabbat, there's a pen that after a couple hours, it erases itself. It's not permanent. So when you come back Motzei Shabbat, you can use a real pen to sign it again before it's erased. Jewish scientists have come up with creative ideas that are compatible with Torah. But these are not changes. These are not changes. You see? But in order to be able to think like that, you have to have Da'at Torah. You have to be imbued with Torah, with the love and respect for the Torah. If any of that respect is missing, lacking, was not received from you, by you, from the rabbi who had it, then obviously there's a chance it's going to be weakened, especially with all the temptations and the challenges of this generation. Oh, why not? I'd love to go by car to shul. I can go 25 miles too. So that does not permit you to go to shul. Stay home and don't drive. That's more important. Oh no. They're saying, no, let him come to shul. Let him drive. Chaz v'shalom. You see how the crooked way of thinking, twisted way of thinking, because they've lost touch with the tradition. They cannot be trusted, therefore, with giving over the tradition to the next generation. That is why it's so important that one learns Torah from the proper source. So hopefully, B'ezrat Hashem, he will be strong enough to give it over to his children as well. Thank you.